Hi, I'm Karin on Lifestyle, and today I'd like to talk about the series I'm doing on hand building and some of the projects that will be completed during this series. I'm really excited about the series, and I wanted to show you guys some of the stuff that it's possible to make. Please comment below if you see something you'd really like to make, and we'll move it up on the list. At the end, I'll talk a little bit about food safety and the kinds of clay that we'll be using and some of the glazes that we'll be using. Everything that we're going to use in this series is going to be food safe. Let's start with serving pieces, and then I'll move on to housewares and some other stuff that we can make. The first video that I uploaded was on bowls. And we certainly can do lots of different kinds of bowls. Some of my favorite are these. Let's see. Are these, which we'll talk about. We've used red clay with this one. It's not the same as terracotta, just red clay. And I made 4 of them because I really like the shape. And they're nice and thin. My style is sort of organic, which means not terribly perfect. A lot of the more modern pieces are much more perfect. I like the thinner, more organic look to my pots. And when I try and do stuff on the wheel, I can't get that. I either get something that's kind of clunky and thicker, or I get something that's really perfect, and that's not as interesting to me. So you'll find your style as you work more and more on your pieces. A bowl, I talk about that a little later when we talk about food safety. One of my favorite things to work on is spoons. I have lots of different styles that I make. These are little coffee spoons that you use to stir your coffee. Serving spoons of lots of different styles and stuff. Of course, coffee mugs. We'll do several of those as we move on. One thing that I made a long time ago, and some of this stuff is student stuff and some of it's stuff that I've had forever that I just love. This is actually a coil built little pitcher, and I use it in the kitchen so much. A lot of my kitchen stuff is red. I love the glaze on this. And it's just got a nice handle, a good pour spout, and I use it for scrambling eggs or, you know, putting a sauce in that I'm going to serve. Lots of different things. Some other serving pieces that I really love that I serve hors d'oeuvres or food in is this little tray. I'll put vegetables or stuff that I'm serving with wine. Let's see, what else have I got? Oh, these little serving pieces are great. This is one of my favorite things, and I give a lot of these away. You make individual little bowls, and you can make them round or square, however you like. And then your tray, typically if I'm doing bowls that match, I'll put little dividers. A lot of times I'll just make the tray without the dividers. It makes such a great tray for crudité or, you know, whatever you're serving, even olives or pickles or something. So this makes a nice little serving piece. What else did I want to talk? Oh, a baker. I really want to do a baker for us. This is a particularly simple one. It's got a little decorative thing in the front. But these bakers are perfect for 2 people. You can put mac and cheese in here, or sort of a half recipe of a casserole. And if you make it thick enough and, you know, make sure that your seams are good, this works perfectly in the oven. and makes a really nice casserole dish. One of the other things that I use a lot is my white pitcher. I've linked some of this stuff to my Instagram account. There's also a gallery page, I think, that I've put some of the jewelry that I make and the ceramics that I make. So some of that is in there. Something that isn't really a serving piece, but I use in the kitchen a lot, are vases. I really like this design where I kind of have this little piece here. And that's one of the first videos that I intend to do, maybe even this weekend, on just how to make this design. I like the little bit of underglaze that I've got going on with the white. Here's another example of that vase. I put a little applique on here. I hope you can see it. But this is just a very simple. I really like the way the glazes turned out on this. I've got some underglaze here and here and here, and detail on that. So that's a really fun piece to make. So that's kind of the serving pieces, and the eating pieces, of course, bowls and plates. You can do plates small like this with a little foot on them. You can make them larger. I've given away all the larger plates that I've made, so I don't have any to show you right now. So that's kind of the range of eating and serving pieces that I'm thinking about doing. The rest of them are sort of housewares. These are decorative trays that I've made. You could certainly serve food on them, but I kind of made them for a decorative tray. Here's another example of a decorative tray. Decorative tray that I made. I've got some raw clay on this that I really like. The edges are raw. There's a seam down the middle that's raw. I kind of like that look, and it makes a really pretty tray to set in the living room. Another decorative piece that I've got is, and this is kind of fun to make. This uses mason stains in white clay to make sort of a mottled effect. And if you've played with Sculpey or any of the craft clays with your kids, or just as something to play around with yourself, you might have done some of this kind of mottled stain, or a couple different colors of clay that mix together. I use clay and then stain, and then don't mix it up all the way, and you come out with this beautiful marbled effect. And we've got a couple of, I really like this foot. However, that foot, I hope you can see this, this foot isn't terribly stable, so you don't use this foot in serving pieces. You would only use it in decorative pieces. A couple of the other trays that I really love to make, and I give a lot of these away, are these just little really simple pieces. I've got some in different geometric shapes that I just put a little bit of an edge on, and just, they're fun to glaze, they're fun to make and give away as gifts. This is another one that I've done some underglazing on. Just a nice little piece. Then there's boxes. You can make wonderful boxes that you can use as, to put jewelry or your, I don't know, cords or something in. I used this one in the bedroom. It's just got a little motif on there that's sort of meaningful to me. Another piece that's really fun, and this is a student piece that I love, and that I wanted to bring out just because I really love the square feet on this, and the decorative sort of design on the outside of it, and the way that this is made. This is made, and it's keyed so that you set it on there right. You make a box, you put a lid on it, and then you cut it. And that's the way the lid is made. You just cut a square box that you've made, and you've got a lid. We'll make one of those because they're really fun to make and they're really easy to make. I really like the square feet on this. We'll do a whole video on feet just because it's fun. That's kind of it for the different projects that I'd like to make. And now we'll just kind of move on to the second part of the video. Okay, everyone, I promised you a little information about food safety and the different types of clay. First of all, I want to show you some finished pieces and different types of clay and the finishes that those make. The funny shaped bowl that we did turns out like this. This is a more organic piece, and I've put some texture on the outside. If you can see this, this is a speckled clay and not the white clay that I was using in the demonstration. It does make a wonderful piece, and it does affect the way the color of the glaze looks on the piece. This is a very organic shape. I really love this shape. Another example of this shape done differently with white clay is this one. I particularly like this one because I can use chopsticks with it. It kind of makes that nice little rice bowl. I have two different sizes of this bowl, so I make it in this shape for just small amounts, and I make it in this shape. This particular finish is using a paint-on glaze that I talked about a little bit. This particular bowl uses a paint-on glaze on this side and underglazes with a clear finish on this side. And I have a couple of these that I've done differently. I really like the way they turn out. The large bowl that we made earlier ends up looking a lot like this or this, depending on how far down the rim of the stainless steel bowl that you go. This one is, once again, a type of buff or speckled clay. You can see it's much darker finish than this one, which is white clay. White clay works beautifully with white glazes. It makes a very clean looking modern bowl. I love the speckled nature of the buff clays. I love the way it changes this fairly spring green color to a darker color with the speckles on the inside. I really like that. These are those large bowls I love to make. They're great for prep bowls if you're peeling potatoes or carrots or getting bulky items ready to prepare in the kitchen. These work great. They also make a great salad bowl for that evening salad that you don't want to get all over the place, but you really want a lot of salad. These white bowls all use the white clay. This is a good example of a lighter buff without the speckles, used with a fairly translucent white. Another thing that you can see in this bowl is I used wax paper as my buffer between the clay and the form, and you can see the wrinkles that I get from that. I really kind of like that look. So I've talked a little bit about the way the clay looks and the way it looks with glazes on top of it. Let's talk about food safety. There's basically three types of clay: low fire, mid-range, and high fire clay. I've printed out a chart that's linked below that you can also print out and kind of reference. There's a lot of information on this chart. I won't go through it all. But basically what it's talking about is the fact that some clays, terracotta, some of the craft clays, and definitely mold clays that you pour into molds, are fired at a low range, and that's referred to with a cone rating. Those can be rated at cone 0.6 to 0.4. 0.6 to 0.4 is what I bisque fire my clay to. In other words, before I glaze it, in order to get all the moisture out of the clay, I bisque fire it to a cone 0.5 is what I usually use, between 0.4 and 0.6. Then I glaze fire my pieces to a cone 5 or 6. And those are the types of clay that I use. So when you buy your clay, the store person is going to say, so what do you fire to? And if you're firing to a low fire, that would be cone 0.4 or 0.6. If you're firing to a mid-range, I say I'm firing to cone 6. That has nothing to do with the bisque fire that makes it hard and I can put glazes onto. That's my first firing. The cone 6 is great because most manufactured glazes are food safe at that temperature. They're also microwave safe and oven safe. The only thing you can't do is actually put them on the stove on a flame. They're not strong enough for that. They will crack. So cone 6 is a perfect range. It's not only economical because you don't have to get the kiln quite as hot, but it's also, with the glazes that they have these days, can be just as beautiful as something that's fired to a much higher temperature. It used to be the higher the temperature, the more interesting glaze effects you could get on your piece. That's not quite as true anymore. So let's see, the other thing I wanted to talk about, let's see, I have some notes. It's important. So terracotta is okay for cooking, but you must buy terracotta clay. Red brown clay is not the same as terracotta clay. I've got some temperature ranges in my notes, but I'm not going to go through that. It's in the piece here. I will say that a low fire clay, the lowest temperature, cone 0.6, is like 1816 degrees. So these are very, very high temperatures. Is buy commercially made glazes. Those are going to say food safe right on the outside of them. They come in many different types of forms. They come in dry that you mix with water. They come already mixed with water and you just use them right out of the tub. They come in the pint jars that I had earlier in the video that you paint on. All of those are going to say right on the outside of them whether or not they're food safe. Clay that is completely glazed in the area where the food touches the pot, the bowl, are food safe. In other words, if you want a rim of raw clay on the outside, that's great. You'll need to have the bottom raw so that it doesn't stick to the shelf, but this is completely safe. This is completely safe. Even something with speckles is completely safe because the glaze is in fact covering the entire interior surface of the bowl. Some of the qualities of the clay show through the glaze, but it's still completely glazed. So that's it for food safety. Thanks for watching. And be sure and subscribe if you like the content of my videos. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.